Good morning and welcome to the Forex Daily Update, brought to you by Pepperstone on Tuesday the 28th of August 2018. I'm Darren Sinden and you can follow me throughout the day on Twitter by using @ds_Pepperstone. Right, let's take a look at the overnight changes and price moves to be aware of. And a very interesting day yesterday with dollar index losing ground. 94.85 we're trading now, shortly before we recorded the video, back below that 95 level for the dollar, and the recent strength drifting away. You can see that the Chinese yuan weakened as well though on the day, and the one thing probably the dollar did do well was gain against the Chinese currency by 0.27%. But the really interesting moves came in dollar peso, the peso gaining up by 0.47%, and there was a similar move in emerging market currencies typified by the rand, which gained 0.41% against the US dollar. Now we'll look at some of the reasons for those moves in a moment, but suffice to say they were trade related. Okay, what's on the calendar? Events that may move the markets today. A pretty quiet calendar in terms of high impact data, but there are still plenty of releases for us to consider. We start at 6:45 AM GMT with consumer confidence data out of France. That's followed at 8 o'clock GMT with business and consumer confidence data from Italy for the month of August. And that's accompanied by some money supply and private loan data out of the Eurozone as well at that time, and that's for the month of July. So I look at the credit conditions, if you will, and the ease and availability of money in the Eurozone. And then at 9 o'clock the Italians are back on the calendar with producer price index factory gate inflation data for the month of July. Then we switch to the other side of the Atlantic for 12:30 and cross into the United States for wholesale inventories data for the month of July. We'll also have Red Book Index for the week of August 24th at 12:55 GMT. At 1300 we'll have the S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Indices for June. And then at 1400 the pick of the US releases, the Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index for the month of August. There was data from the Dallas Fed yesterday, which was the second of the regional Fed surveys of late that have shown a downturn in manufacturing output. Be interesting to see what the Richmond Virginia Fed says about that today. And then to close proceedings today at 2301 we'll have the British Retail Consortium Shop Price Index for August, and look at price index data, inflation data if you will, on the UK High Street. Okay, breaking news and comment that's caught my eye overnight. First of all, President Trump announces that the US and Mexico have come to an agreement about the way forward in terms of renegotiating the NAFTA deal. So I said most of the big moves in FX were down to some trade news, and that was the news that moved the market significantly. US equity markets and the Mexican peso advanced on the news, but as we saw, the dollar retreated. Improving business sentiment and hopes around global trade boosted the Germany 30 equity index, which closed up 1.2% yesterday. And UK PM Theresa May travels to Africa today on a trip that includes visits to South Africa, Nigeria and Kenya, and that's aimed at boosting relationships and trade ahead of the UK's Brexit. Okay, food for thought, something to take away with you into the trading day and beyond, and why not think about this? As the markets react positively to talk of progress on a Mexico-US trade deal, should we be looking at the prospects for a settlement with Canada too? Remember that NAFTA is a three-way agreement between Mexico, the USA and Canada, and that all parties would need to be included in any renegotiation. Canadian data, economic data, has impressed of late, but the Canadian dollar is still down year to date versus its US counterpart. The question is then, could that be about to change? The chart on the right hand side here shows the Canadian Economic Surprise Index and how well it's rallied through 2018. And there is an index of the Canadian dollar spot exchange rate versus the dollar here in blue as well. And as you can see, that's underperforming relative to, or looks to be underperforming relative to, the improvement in Canadian macroeconomic data. So the question is, if there is a movement on trade, could the Canadian dollar now rally in the same fashion as we saw in the Mexican peso? But That's to come, but it's certainly something to consider and be aware of. Right, please take a moment to read the risk warning. Trading CFDs and foreign exchange on margin can be a risky business. If you're in any doubt about these risks or the suitability of leverage products for you, then please do contact your Pepperstone account representative and do take a moment to read this risk warning. Thank you for your time.